Other people's old lady should just disappear. I was utterly dumbfounded by her remark. This is the house that my husband's ancestors have protected for generations. Why should I be the one to leave? If anyone should leave, it's her. She said it so nonchalantly with a nasty smirk on her face. Then I'll leave. My easy agreement to leave seemed to catch her off guard, as she stood there with her mouth hanging open in a daze. I packed my valuables and essentials into a bag, stood at the entrance, and took one last look around the house. In the living room, her triumphant laughter echoed mockingly. And so, I left the house filled with memories behind, gazing up at the clear, starry sky. I swore to myself, just you watch, harboring thoughts of revenge. My name is Monica, and I turned 82 this year. My husband passed away from cancer 15 years ago. He was the owner of a brewery, a family business that had been passed down for nearly 400 years. I used to help out in the shop, managing orders and tending to customers, working side by side with him. After his death, with no one to succeed him, we had to close the brewery and the shop. However, my eldest son, James, who was working in a major corporation at the time, chose to leave his position and take over the family business. I was both shocked and deeply moved by James. Before long, my son and his wife, along with my grandchildren, moved in to live with me. James had always been a kind and thoughtful child, caring deeply for his parents. He combined traditional management methods with his corporate connections to develop new markets for our brewery. Thanks to his efforts, our brewery's products gained a great reputation, and sales steadily increased. But just as the business was finding its stride, tragedy struck. In the year he turned 60, James suddenly passed away from acute heart failure. The family brewery, passed down through generations, had to be closed temporarily. It was heartbreaking to let go of our longtime employees. I spent my days in a daze, unable to come to terms with this unforeseen loss. Amidst all this, living with my grandson Marlowe became the only solace in my remaining years. Marlowe, whom I had looked after in the shop since he was young, was particularly attached to me. I adored him beyond measure. He was my pride and joy. However, not everyone was pleased with our close bond. That person was James's wife, Natalie. When she first married James, she was pleasant and always courteous in our interactions. But after her husband passed away and James left his corporate job to run the brewery, her attitude began to change. And following James's death, Natalie became like a completely different person. Natalie, my sister and her husband are visiting today. Could you help me with the cooking? I'm busy right now, so no. Natalie, in name a housewife, left all the household chores to me. I heard that when she lived in a condominium, Natalie used to hire a housekeeper to take care of James and Marlowe. Reluctantly, I handle all the household chores, but honestly, my body is screaming in pain. Busy? You're always just playing with your mobile phone. I had always been bothered by Natalie constantly on her phone. I'm not good with technology, so I don't really understand what she's doing. Oh, you don't know? You can do business with this nowadays. This is why I hate clueless old people. Business? What kind? There's no point explaining it to Monica, Natalie said spitefully, and then returned her gaze to her mobile phone. There was an unbridgeable gap between Natalie and me. She was strongly against James leaving his corporate job with a $100,000 annual salary to take over the family business. Indeed, it would be hard to believe for most people that someone would give up everything to take over a family business. The brewery's revenue was only about a third of what he used to earn as a corporate employee, especially since she was used to a comfortable life funded by James's income, now having to live modestly with an old woman like me. I could empathize with her frustration, especially after losing her husband so suddenly to illness. To avoid escalating the situation, I told myself I should bear the brunt of her frustrations. Furthermore, considering Natalie's position after James was suddenly taken by illness, I could understand her urge to lash out at me. Monica, you washed my favorite cardigan in the washing machine yesterday, didn't you? Yes, it was lying in the living room. I wanted it dry cleaned. Now it smells of cheap fabric softener. Oh, is that so? You should have said something. You should have realized that yourself. You're completely useless. On another day, while I was cooking in the kitchen, she came over. Stir fry again today? And Monica's seasoning is so bland it hardly feels like eating. She peered over at what I was doing and commented, I'm sorry, it's just before pension day, so funds are tight. But it's healthier to keep the salt low. This is why I hate being poor. And stop preaching to me, will you? Natalie's all talk. She doesn't cook, doesn't do laundry, and never goes shopping. She seems to be working a part-time job somewhere, but she doesn't contribute to the household expenses, not even for food. Our current income sources are my pension and a survivor's pension. To manage on this limited budget, I walk to the supermarket far from home. Some days I get dizzy from exhaustion. On days he doesn't have club activities, Marlowe, worried about me, does the shopping on his way home. Right now, he's my only support. Amidst these daily struggles, two things troubled me. I heard Natalie's family is wealthy, so why does she continue to live here now that James is gone? The second thing is, why she's so hostile towards me. It might be because she's upset that Marlowe is more attached to me, but she was the one who asked me to look after him. So it's not surprising that his affection is more towards me than her. While still not understanding Natalie's true intentions, I carried on with my days. Then, about half a year later, one day, Natalie had been out since the morning, leaving me alone at home. While cleaning, the doorbell rang. Looking at the monitor, I saw Natalie's mother, Elsa, standing there. I hadn't seen her since James's funeral. It's me, Elsa. Hurry up and open the door. Elsa's face and voice were angry, and I felt an uneasy premonition. I hurried to the entrance and opened the door. It's been a long time, Elsa. What brings you here today? What brings me here? I've heard you've been terribly cruel to my daughter. What? Poor thing. She called me crying the other day. I was speechless, unable to comprehend what Elsa was saying. Her accusations were utterly baseless. It's me who's been treated like a housekeeper, enduring harsh words every day. I tried to explain this to her, but she wouldn't listen and continued to berate me. You're the devil. My daughter, raised like a lady, breaks easily under the harsh words of commoners like you. You're mistaken. That's not the truth. At this point, you still won't admit it. Apologize sincerely for what you've done. What right do you have to speak ill of my precious daughter? Overwhelmed by her intensity, I gradually lost the energy to respond and just listened in silence. Why would Natalie tell such lies in the first place? Contrasting with her agitated state, I was surprisingly calm, pondering this question. Eventually, after saying what she wanted, Elsa left, muttering to herself. One night after finishing the dishes, I let out a deep sigh in the kitchen. Marlowe, who had just come out of the shower and was getting water from the fridge, must have noticed. Grandma, what's wrong? You're sighing. If you have any worries, I'm here to listen. Marlowe, thank you, I'm fine. If anything's bothering you, just tell me. I'm on your side, Grandma. Marlowe is such a kind boy, always concerned about me. Honestly, I was physically and mentally exhausted. His kind words nearly brought me to tears, but I didn't want to worry him more, so I held back. His strong words of support gave me the courage to take a step forward. I can't let things stay like this forever. After finishing his water, Marlowe went up to his room on the second floor. A while later, Natalie returned home, mobile phone in hand, and immediately started yelling as she entered the kitchen. Hey, why isn't my dinner ready? You said this morning when you left that you didn't need dinner tonight, didn't you? My plans changed. Oh, I'm so hungry. If you had told me that, I could have. Stop talking and just go to the grocery store and get something. I had endured Natalie's escalating whims until now, but I decided it was time to speak my mind. No, I am not your housekeeper. Natalie seemed taken aback by my resistance. What's with that attitude? You just need to do as I say. Her language became abruptly rough, glaring at me with bloodshot eyes. But I wasn't afraid. I responded firmly. Then let me ask you this. Your mom Elsa came over the other day. She said I was hurling abuses at you every day. Why would you tell such a lie? Explain that to me." "Shut up! It's none of your business." Natalie was clearly shaken. I was convinced that there must be a reason for her harassment. Hearing our voices, Marlowe came downstairs from his room. "What's going on? Why are you raising your voices? Both of you calm down a bit." I softened my expression with Marlowe's intervention, but she continued to glare at me with snake-like intensity. Then, the next moment, Natalie blurted out something shocking. "Why are you still here? Other people's old ladies should just disappear." I was dumbfounded by her remark. This is the house that my husband and his ancestors had protected for generations. Why should I be the one to leave? If anyone should leave, it would be Natalie. She said it nonchalantly with a nasty smirk on her face. I felt anger rising within me, threatening to take over. Then, in the next moment, Marlowe whispered something to me quietly. After hearing his murmur, I nodded and took a deep breath. "Then, I'll leave." My quick arrangement to leave seemed to catch her off guard, as she stood there with her mouth agape. I packed my valuables and essentials into a bag, stood at the entrance and looked around the house. In the living room, Natalie's triumphant laugh echoed, and with that I left the house filled with memories. Looking up at the clear, starry sky, I swore to myself, "Just you watch," harboring thoughts of revenge. My destination after leaving the house was my sister and her husband's place. They have no children, and upon hearing my story, they welcomed me warmly. At that time, "Leave it to me," I was saved by Marlowe's whisper. I wondered what would have happened if I had reacted to Natalie's provocation. Lately, my blood pressure had been high, and I had been having occasional headaches. In the worst case, I might have collapsed. The mere thought sent shivers down my spine. As it turns out, Marlowe had discovered a secret about Natalie. He later wrote the secret in a letter and sent it to me. About 10 days ago, on his way home after finishing his high school club activities, he saw Natalie walking hand in hand with an unfamiliar man. Feeling suspicious, he followed them and saw them enter a club in the entertainment district. Seeing the sign of the club, Marlowe was shocked. It was a nightclub catering to women in their 30s to 50s. Natalie's constant phone use was to check reservations from clients who had chosen her. Had she referred to this as her business before? Nevertheless, pushing household chores onto me and neglecting her child to drink with strange men was utterly distasteful. I felt an overwhelming urge to retaliate immediately. When I mentioned this to Marlowe over the phone, he advised against it, urging me to stay calm. Heated by his warning, I reflected. Firstly, I needed to understand the true reason why Natalie was trying to anger me. Acting rashly now might obscure the truth. Besides, without concrete evidence, she could easily deny everything. So I decided to call Natalie, aiming to observe her reaction and coax out her true intentions. "Yes, what is it?" "Natalie, I wanted to ask you something. Someone I know mentioned they saw you walking in town with an unfamiliar man." "What? You must be mistaken. That's impossible." "Really? Because there aren't many tall women like you around here." "It's a mistake. Do you have a problem with that?" Natalie's tone was forceful, but she clearly seemed agitated. It was obvious she was hiding something she didn't want known. A glimmer of light pierced the deep fog in my mind. A few nights later, perhaps thinking she was being probed because of my phone call, Natalie was talking on the phone in the living room. Marlowe secretly listening in. It appears she was talking to Elsa. "Mom, Monica seems to be snooping around. I wonder if it's safe. It would be troublesome if she found out about the matter." "Well, yeah, that old lady can't do anything." Though the response wasn't audible from Marlowe's account, I realized Natalie and Elsa were conspiring for some purpose and had been verbally abusing me. This was unforgivable. I decided to seek help from my brother-in-law Elias to get confirmation. He's a retired police officer who now runs a detective agency for the underprivileged. I arranged to meet with Marlowe and visited Elias's office to discuss everything. He listened to the situation and readily agreed to help. "I understand the situation. We need to proceed with caution. I'll start by inquiring with the relevant parties. I feel bad asking you for this, Elias, but please help me. We then meticulously planned our next steps. 3 days later, I invited Natalie to a cafe near the house. What do you want? I have a meeting with someone soon. It won't take long. After you called me an outsider the other day, I had an epiphany. I might not have much time left, so I've decided to leave all the property of the house to you and Marlowe. Her arrogant posture changed as she leaned forward, her eyes sparkling. Really? Yes, as proof, let's both sign this document. She signed the document eagerly without any hesitation. Holding one copy, she left the cafe humming and in high spirits. Now everything was set. A month passed. The bell for the beginning of my revenge had rung. I visited my home to talk to Natalie and Elsa. The house, which I hadn't seen in a while, was poorly cleaned, with trash scattered around. The garden was overrun with weeds. Seeing my neglected home made me feel miserable, but reminding myself the real battle was yet to come, I slapped my face with both hands to steel myself. I sat down on the familiar sofa in the living room. Elsa was sitting across from me, glaring and staring intently. Natalie, glaring at me in the same manner, spoke up. What do you want to talk about? Do you still have some lingering attachment to this house? I'll speak frankly. This is about a secret you two share. Secret? What are you referring to? She feigned ignorance, but this was expected. Ever since James passed away, I've endured your verbal abuse and managed the household chores despite my failing health. I left the house without understanding why you went to such lengths. What are you trying to say? Stop wasting time and just tell me. Natalie, interrupting and swinging her feet, shouted. All right, I'll be clear. Your aim is the land and the rights to this house. What are you suddenly accusing us of? I could feel Natalie's agitation, but continued anyway. The property of this house was inherited by me and our only son after my husband passed away. Unfortunately, after James also died, his assets were inherited by you and Marlowe. So what? Natalie, you are currently working at a nightclub in the entertainment district, aren't you? How do you know that? At that moment, Marlowe came downstairs. It was all according to the plan. The other day I saw Mom walking hand in hand with a man in a suit in town and followed them. What? It was all according to the plan. You heard from a male customer who works at the municipal office, right? He told you about a potential shopping mall being built near this house's land. How do you know that? But it's all talk, there's no proof. There is proof. Elias tracked down that man from the office, and under the condition that we wouldn't inform his superiors, he confessed everything. I recorded the whole thing on my mobile phone. Marlowe played the video on his phone. This can't be real. You consulted Elsa about it since she's a land expert. You both thought of getting this land from me to make a significant profit. Then, you repeatedly hurled abuses and hurtful words at me to wear me down. Elsa, Elias also investigated your company. Since your husband died, the business has been failing, and you have substantial bank debts. Acquiring this land and selling it when the price soars could bring in enough money to pay off those debts. Your previous visit to my house was not just to hurt me, but also to scout this land. Well, that's, The two couldn't find words to escape the situation and hung their heads. Suddenly, Natalie came to my feet and clung to me. Monica, I'm so sorry for everything I've done. I genuinely regret it. Please forgive me. What a strange thing to say. I don't have a daughter, not even by marriage. After all, you and I are strangers. Look. I showed her the document we had signed. Apparently, she was so elated when signing it that she hadn't checked the content thoroughly. She might have misunderstood that I was gifting her my assets, but there wasn't a single line in the document stating such. Even if it was claimed to be verbal promise of a lifetime gift, such a contract made on a verbal promise can be unilaterally revoked by me. The document stated that Natalie and I are strangers and shall have no further relations. Seeing this, she began to tremble and sob. Elsa also collapsed to the floor, utterly distraught. The fog in my heart cleared, and I felt a refreshing sense of relief. Natalie, as per the document, had to leave the house. She's now staying with relatives. Additionally, it seems she was fired from the nightclub for revealing client information to the manager. Natalie, anticipating profit from the sale of this house's land, extensively used her credit cards, resulting in substantial debt. She's struggling with various part-time jobs and unable to see a way out of her debt. The relatives discovered Natalie had accumulated a large amount of debt from them. She begged not to be thrown out and is now staying as a housekeeper in their home, out of their pity. I heard she is living in a pitiful state, unable to afford meals and surviving on one meal a day, sometimes just on leftover bread she gets for free. Elsa's real estate company went bankrupt, and their home, which was mortgaged, was seized by the bank. Currently, she and Natalie are living with relatives. I heard they are lectured daily about Natalie's reckless spending being a result of poor parenting, leading them to a life of tears. Hearing this, I thought it was just a coincidence. Both are pitiful. 5 years have passed since then. The plan for a shopping mall near our home was abandoned 2 years ago, and I am living healthily in this beloved house. Marlowe, who went to university, has expressed a desire to revive the family brewery and shop, studying about alcohol there. He has now taken over my husband's brewery. Former employees wishing to work for Marlowe have returned. Despite the twists and turns in my life, seeing Marlowe working happily with everyone makes me feel that everything has been worthwhile. The brewery has come to life again, and I am glad that I followed my convictions and acted accordingly.